Hi, my name is Robert Lauder, and I'm the CEO and founder of TDS Tax Deferred Solutions. We're your school district's third-party administrator, and today that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what is a third-party administrator and why are we important to you, the employee, as well as the employer. So on this video, as in my other videos, just going to go back and forth between me and what I'm doing here on my iPad. And I've made a little drawing here for you to see that kind of explains the role of the TPA. Again, TPA stands for Third Party Administrator. The TPA sort of sits in the middle of a number of transactions, very similar to an escrow, if you will. So we sit between you, the employee, your employer, the school district, the IRS, and the vendors, which are the investment product providers in the state of California that you can contribute things like 403B, 457B, and 7702. These are different type of retirement savings plans, which we get into in subsequent videos. We talk about the income retirement gap and things like that. But the purpose of this video is to simply explain what the TPA's role is in the middle of that. So first and foremost, because these are IRS codes, they're codes because there's some sort of specialized tax treatment. In the case of 403B and 457, those are non-taxable going in, but taxable coming out. 7702 is the opposite, and there's different times and different reasons you use these different kind of scenarios. And then in the state of California, there's about 50 different vendors that provide products that fit inside these three categories. So again, this is not about the investment products per se, but it's about the role of the TPA. So what do? Well, first and foremost, our responsibility is to make sure that these plans, 403B, 457, and 7702, that they're in compliance with the IRS. In fact, these plans were created by Tax Deferred Solutions. We submitted them to the IRS and we got approved. We're one of about 25 companies in the United States that have approved, IRS approved 403B and 457 plans. And then we bring those plans to the school district, your employer, and they adopt the plan. If they adopt the plan, generally we're also the third-party administrator. So first of all, we created the plan and made sure it was in compliance with the IRS. The other thing that we do is we make sure that the vendors stay in compliance because they have certain things they're required to do. The way they hold your money, the way they account for the money, the way they report it. And any time that you want to access those funds, there's rules. We'll get into that in a second. But what most employees don't understand is that whenever you decide that you want to make a contribution into a 403B, 457, or 7702, and you inform your school district, your employer, that you want to do that, your employer sends that request to us, the TPA. In fact, they actually send the funds to us, and then we disperse those funds down to the appropriate vendor account. And what we're looking at is when that contribution comes in is we're looking for compliance, accountability, and suitability. Is the product 403B, 457, or 7702 compliant? Is the vendor in compliance? Is the amount of the transaction in compliance? Are you over contributing or not? You know, and then are we all keeping track of it? And so one of the good things about the TPA handling these transactions for you is that we have all the records of every transaction you ever made going back to the beginning of your employment with that school district where we were the TPA. We have all those transactions and we took really good care to keep good records on those. The other thing that we do with this district is we make sure there's meaningful notice to all employees. That means that in order for this plan to be IRS compliant, the IRS requires that the employer make meaningful efforts, meaningful notice to all employees that the plan is available to them, that they can participate in how the plan works. That's a very key role for the third-party administrator in keeping the plan in compliance. So when you have very few employees participating in the plan, The IRS often looks at that as maybe there's a compliance issue, maybe there hasn't been sufficient meaningful notice. So what we do on behalf of the employer is we frequently email you a couple times a year, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, about certain things related to these plans or your accounts, and we offer each employee the opportunity to find out, is there a change, how can I participate, and so forth and so on. We also have an audit program where if the employee's been contributing for a number of years, we can go in and we can audit the account at the vendor, and or multiple vendors. Every time you started, stopped, increased, decreased, changed vendors, whatever it was, we keep track of all that for you. And as a result of that, we are federally regulated on compliance with securing your data. So we're HIPAA compliant, which means any healthcare information we have about you, and we're also GLB compliant, which is the financial services. So any information we have about you, an email, a phone number, an account number, all that information that we have, we treat it the same way your employer does. And we're holding that really on behalf of you and the employer, and we only use that specifically for these responsibilities that we have here. Why else is the TPA important to you? Well, pre-retirement, you might need a loan for whatever reason. Maybe you've decided to buy a home, or maybe you're trying to get your child into a certain university and you need some money. There's actually provisions for you to borrow out some of the money you may have put in these programs. There could be a hardship, meaning you need all the money for some reason. Maybe there's an unfortunate situation in the family, you need the money. Under certain circumstances, you can apply for, qualify for a hardship, and get all the money out of that account and without tax penalty. The vendors will not release those funds by way of loans or hardships unless the TPA signs off on it, because our job is to make sure everybody's doing everything right. As I said before, we keep accountability. And then finally, what we do is we monitor performance. We help you, I should say, monitor performance. So if, for example, we were to do an audit for you for an employee account, we would then go to the various different vendors where there are investments, and we would monitor from the time you started making investments, contributions, until present time, is it performing the way that you thought? How does it compare up against your retirement income gap? Should you increase? Can you decrease? Should you consider switching to a different strategy? Those things that we show you how to measure your performance. And if you don't measure your performance against the retirement income gap, which is a projection of income you need against the amount of income your assets can produce along with your pension, then you really can't gauge the performance very well. So we help you with that. Post-retirement, we do the same thing. You could be a retired employee of the public school or a retired teacher, and we can still help you monitor performance because you still have the option of doing many different types of activities, and you can make changes. You're not still earning, so you're not going to be contributing, but you can do things like rollovers, and you can do 1035 exchanges. It just depends on whether or not the performance is up to par, whether you should make any adjustments to where your assets are earning interest, let's to put it simply. There's also pension maximization. There's a lot of things we can do to help a post-retiree. For example, sometimes if you're underinsured, then more of your retirement income is at risk. And so there's a balance there where there's new hybrid products today like the 7702 that do things like provide long-term care insurance, critical illness, critical injury, life insurance, and tax-free income at retirement, depending on what you need. And the flexibility of some of these new modern hybrid products could mean that you don't have to buy as much insurance, and that's more money that can go into your retirement portfolio, which means more income for you. So it's very important, whether you're pre-retirement or post-retirement, to utilize these services. All the TPA services are, of course, free. They're either paid for by the employer or the vendors in the state of California, so you don't have to pay for them. Most of the time, the vendors pay for these services. And TDS is the oldest and largest TPA in the state of California for public schools. TDS was established in 1978, so we're 40 years old. We've served over 300,000 public school employees and CTA members during that time. And we're very proud of our service, and we really love to serve you. From TDS's perspective, the employee is the boss. We're here to help you, whether it's pre-retirement, post-retirement, or just wanting to make sure you understand how these programs work. So feel free to call us. There's a chat box below here on the webpage. There's also a number of other resources that you can take advantage of. For example, there is on the tax deferred website, as you scroll down, you'll see here that you can get a free STRS report, STRS or PERS analysis. You can get a 7702, where I was comparing the 7702 to 403B and 457. You can get an order an audit report, income gap, or you can also check out our mortgage program. We're specialists in the CalHFA program, which is California Funded Housing and Mortgage Assistance. You can earn even as much as $70,000 a year and still get qualify for funding from CalHFA for closing costs and down payments and things like that. So it might be worth your while to explore some of these different services we have. As I said, all of our services are free. I really hope that this video presentation about what a TPA is answered some questions for you, and I hope you get a chance to participate in some of these free services. Thank you for your time.